I'm gonna be honest. I almost deleted the file without listening to it, because it showed up in my inbox with no subject line, no name, no nothing. Just an attachment called for_you.wave. And I don't know why, but the second I saw it, my stomach kind of tightened, like my brain already knew this wasn't a normal tip. Let me go back a bit. I'm a journalist, not the famous kind. I'm the kind who pitches stories that get maybe later replies, and I freelance more than I'd like to admit. I used to work at a local paper, but cuts happened, and after that I was just trying to keep moving. At the time, I was stuck in this loop. Wake up, scroll job boards, chase leads, write things nobody seemed to read, and then feel guilty for caring so much. Honestly, I was starting to question if I was still a journalist at all or just someone pretending. So when that email arrived, I stared at it for a full minute. No message, no signature, just the audio file. I clicked play, and right away, I heard a man's voice. Calm, not shaky, not excited, like he was leaving a voicemail about a missed appointment. He said, "I'm going to tell you what happened to Daniel Mercer." That name hit me harder than I expected, because Daniel Mercer was one of those cases everyone in my city remembered, even if they didn't follow it closely. A guy found dead near the river 10 years ago. It was officially ruled unsolved, and people argued about it for years. Online threads, late-night radio calls, all that. Then it faded like everything fades. The man on the audio didn't sound like he was performing. No heavy breathing. No dramatic pauses. He just talked. He described the night, a street, parked car, a specific kind of smell, oil or metal or something like that. And he said very plainly, "I killed him." I actually paused it. I won't lie. My first thought was, this is fake. Someone wants attention. Or someone's messing with me because I wrote about corruption a few months back and a few people got angry. But then I pressed play again, and he said details that weren't in the main articles. Little things, like where the security camera didn't point, like a construction gate that was usually locked, except on Tuesdays, like the fact that Daniel had a cheap lighter in his pocket shaped like a fish. I went cold because I remembered that lighter, not because I knew Daniel. I didn't, but I covered the story for One Day Back when I was still at the paper. I was a junior reporter. I sat through a police briefing where someone mentioned a novelty lighter and then quickly moved on. It never made the news, at least not that I saw. So how did this guy know that? I replayed the file twice. Then a third time, just listening for anything, background noise, a hint of a location, a TV in the distance. There was something faint like a hum. Could have been a fridge. Could have been a cheap microphone. Nothing obvious. Then, near the end, the man said something that didn't fit. He said, "This isn't a confession because I feel guilty. I'm not asking to be forgiven." And I remember just sitting there, staring at my laptop because, if it's not guilt, then why say it at all? He finished with, "You'll understand when you find out what they did first." That line stayed with me. They. Not he. Not Daniel. Not I. They. Looking back, that's the exact moment I stopped treating it like a random tip and started treating it like a door I probably shouldn't open. But I did. The next morning, I called an old contact at the courthouse to pull whatever I could on Daniel Mercer's case. Public records, timelines, anything. And when I finally got the file, there was one thing missing that I swore used to be there. A witness statement I remembered reading years ago. Not redacted. Missing. And that's when I started thinking, maybe this audio wasn't someone trying to confess. Maybe it was someone trying to aim me. Alright, so after I noticed that missing witness statement, I did what journalists do when something doesn't make sense. I started calling people. First, it was the usual routine. Old police contacts, a retired detective I'd interviewed before, someone who used to work records at the department. Most of them barely remembered the case. 10 years is a long time in local crime reporting. New stories replace old ones. But one person paused when I mentioned Daniel Mercer. A woman named Carla who used to handle court filings. She said, "That river case?" And I said, "Yeah." There was this quiet moment on the phone, like she was deciding something. Then she told me something strange. She remembered a witness early on in the investigation. A guy who claimed he saw Daniel arguing with someone near a parking lot the night he died. But the statement didn't go anywhere. I asked why. She said, "Because the witness changed his story 2 days later. According to Carla, the man suddenly said he must have been mistaken. Wrong person. Wrong night. Police dropped it. And that might have been the end of it. Except the voice in the audio file had described that same parking lot. The same argument. Almost word for word. I won't lie, that's when I felt that uncomfortable shift in my chest. The kind you get when coincidence starts stacking up a little too neatly. So I did something that, looking back, was probably naive. I replied to the email. There was no address listed in the message body, just the sender line. Still, I wrote, "If this is real, talk to me." Honestly, I expected nothing. But the next morning there was another email waiting. One sentence. "Start with the fire report." That's it. No explanation. No new audio. Just that. So I searched city archives and eventually found a small story buried in local records. 3 months before Daniel Mercer died, there had been a warehouse fire on the east side of town. Small article. No injuries reported. Cause listed as electrical. What caught my attention wasn't the fire itself. It was the ownership of the building. The warehouse belonged to a company Daniel Mercer co-owned. Looking back, that was the first moment the story shifted in my head. Because suddenly Daniel Mercer wasn't just a victim in an unsolved case. He was part of something. I started digging deeper into business records. Mercer had 2 partners. One of them moved out of state not long after the murder. The other one stayed local. And his name kept popping up in odd places. Insurance claims. Property transfers. A couple of lawsuits that quietly disappeared. Nothing illegal on the surface. Just messy. And the more I looked, the more that audio file started sounding different to me. Not like a man confessing. More like someone documenting. Then another message came. No greeting again. Just a new audio clip. This one was shorter. The same calm voice said, "You're close now. You're asking the right questions." I remember feeling this mix of curiosity and irritation. Because whoever this guy was, he clearly knew I was investigating. Which meant he expected it. Then he said something that honestly gave me chills, even though he said it in that same quiet, steady tone. "I didn't kill Daniel Mercer because I hated him." Small pause. "I killed him because no one else was going to stop him." That sentence sat with me for a long time after the audio ended. Because if that was true, the story wasn't about a murderer admitting guilt. It was about someone who believed they'd deliver justice. And here's the thing that really bothered me. The more records I pulled, the more I started to see a pattern around Mercer's business dealings. Fires. Insurance payouts. Properties that quietly changed hands after accidents. Nothing that had ever stuck legally, but enough to make you wonder. And then, late one night while I was cross-checking timelines, I noticed something that made my stomach drop. The warehouse fire, the insurance claim, the transfer of ownership afterward. All of it connected back to someone whose name had never appeared in the murder coverage at all. Not Daniel's partner, not a witness, not a suspect, but someone who had lost everything in that fire, including their family business. And when I searched that name online, the first thing I found was an old interview photo. A man standing outside the burned warehouse, staring straight into the camera. Calm expression. The exact same voice I'd been listening to for days suddenly echoed in my head. Because I realized something. He never sent that audio to the police. He sent it to a journalist. And honestly, I think he wanted the story told. Just not the version everyone believed for the last 10 years.